want to say one thing, Valentine. You think that you are a better man than me because you suplex me in the concrete floor. But I want to say one thing to you. I don't care if you suplex me 2, 3, or 4 times because I'm ready for any kind of action, Valentine. Oh.
WWE loves to celebrate its history, except when it comes to real legends. Pedro Morales carried the company, broke barriers, and became a hero, but you'd barely know it from watching today. This is WWE's most tragic story, and you have to hear about it. In 1959, a 17-year-old boy from Puerto Rico stepped into the wrestling ring for the first time. His name was Pedro Morales, and though he was young, he had the heart of a fighter. Wrestling under the bright lights of New York City, he quickly showed that he belonged among the greats. In those early years, Morales traveled up and down the East Coast, facing tough opponents and learning the tricks of the trade. He wasn't alone. He teamed up with future stars like Miguel Perez Jr. and Argentina Apollo, and formed alliances that helped him grow stronger. But Pedro had bigger dreams, and soon he set his sights on the West Coast, a coast that would one day take a bow and hail Pedro.
Morales goes down. Morocco, no!
Double cross, double cross. Oh, the big left hand right to the esophagus.
By 1965, Morales landed in California, joining Worldwide Wrestling Associates, and from there, he started his chance to prove himself on a bigger stage, and he didn't waste any time. Within months, he challenged Dick Beyer, better known as the Destroyer, and on March 12th, 1965, he shocked the world by defeating him to become the WWA World Heavyweight Champion. He was destined for greatness from here. But has this world ever let a legend live peacefully? I think not. These controversies made his life hell, and I think you deserve to know about them. Pedro Morales was a man who gave his heart and soul to professional wrestling. He spent decades in the ring, entertaining fans and proving himself as one of the greats. Throughout his long career, he managed to avoid scandals, which is rare in the world of wrestling. He was always professional, respected by his peers and loved by his fans. But that doesn't mean he didn't face challenges or criticisms along the way. One of the biggest complaints that fans have today is that WWE doesn't talk about Pedro Morales as much as they should. Even though he is in the Hall of Fame and played a huge role in the company's history, his name is rarely mentioned on WWE programming. Some fans feel that this is unfair because Morales carried the company during the early 1970s. He was the first ever Latino WWE champion, paving the way for many wrestlers who came after him. In fact, in a 2021 tribute article, it was mentioned that he has been almost forgotten by the organization. Some people think that there may be backstage politics involved in why his legacy hasn't been celebrated as much as other wrestling legends. On YouTube, one commentator even called him WWE's forgotten champion, which reflects how many fans feel about the situation. Another challenge Morales faced was stepping into the spotlight after Bruno Sammartino.
They said there was so much friction and jealousy that Bruno wants that belt back.
Nothing could be further from the truth. What happened was, Pedro and I liked each other. We were pretty good friends. And I had always said to McMahon, I says, you know what the fans are really being deprived of? They're being deprived. I says, you guys have this mentality, which I argued a number of times, which maybe you didn't even know, maybe you did, that they had this notion that a good guy had to wrestle a bad guy, and that was the only way that they would think something could be successful.
When he became the WWF champion in 1971, he had to follow in the footsteps of one of the most beloved champions of all time. Sammartino was a superstar, especially among Italian-American fans, and many of them weren't sure if they were ready to accept a new champion. Some people questioned if Morales could draw as many fans to the arenas as Bruno did. However, Morales proved himself to be a huge star, especially among Latino fans. He packed arenas and became a hero to many. His matches were intense, and his fighting spirit made him a fan favorite. Despite his success, the company put the championship back on Sammartino in 1973. This has led to debates over whether Morales lost the title because of business reasons rather than because of anything he did wrong. As wrestling changed in the 1980s, Morales found himself being used less in major matches. By this time, Hulk Hogan had become the face of wrestling. and the WWF was expanding nationally. The style of wrestling was shifting to a more flashy, entertainment-based approach, which was very different from the technical style Morales had built his career on. He was slowly moved down the card, meaning he was featured in less important matches. While this wasn't a major controversy, some fans felt that he still had more to offer and should have been given a bigger role even during the rise of Hulkamania. Later in life, Morales admitted that he wasn't a big fan of the new direction that wrestling took in the 2000s when sports entertainment became the focus. He distanced himself from WWE's modern product because he didn't like the changes, but he never badmouthed anyone. He simply preferred the old-school way of wrestling and chose to stay true to his beliefs. He believed wrestling should be about athleticism and storytelling rather than just spectacle. Unlike many wrestlers of his era, Morales managed to avoid the personal scandals and controversies that affected so many of his peers. He wasn't known for backstage politics, and he never had issues with bad behavior. Any criticisms he faced were mostly about how he was booked or remembered rather than anything he did personally. He remained a private and dignified man, always carrying himself with class. To those who knew him, Morales was more than just a great wrestler. He was a kind and humble man. His widow, Karen, once described him as a magnanimous man, meaning he was generous and kind-hearted, and he was beloved by those around him. He was the kind of person who always made time for his fans, signing autographs and sharing moments with those who supported him. Pedro Morales gave his heart and soul to wrestling, and his story deserves to be remembered for generations. Sadly, legends aren't immortal.
Hello everyone, Bill Apter down here at Apter's Alley, February 12th, 2019. And so sorry that I have to be the bearer of horrible news again. My old friend, one of the great wrestlers, great champions, great people, person of all time, Pedro Morales, has died.
He passed away on February 12th, 2019, at 76, after battling Parkinson's disease for years. His health may have declined, but his impact on wrestling never faded. When the news of his passing broke, the wrestling world came together to pay tribute. Fans, fellow wrestlers, and journalists shared memories of his kindness, his legendary matches, and the mark he left on the sport. WWE acknowledged his passing, but many felt it wasn't enough to honor his legacy truly. Even today, Morales remains an inspiration. He broke barriers for Latino wrestlers and set a high standard of professionalism in the ring. While he might not always get the recognition he deserves, those who know wrestling history understand his importance. Pedro Morales wasn't just a wrestler, he was a hero to thousands of fans, especially those in New York who saw him as their champion. His journey in the wrestling world was filled with excitement, hard work, and unforgettable moments that made him one of the most beloved figures in the sport. It all started in late 1970 when Morales got his big break on the national stage. After years of proving himself in the ring, he finally made his way to the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, or WWF as it was known at the time. Right away, fans noticed something special about him. He had charisma, skill, and a fighting spirit that made him stand out. One of his first matches was a thrilling tag team bout where he teamed up with the legendary Chief Jay Strongbow to take on the Mongols. It was clear from that moment that Morales was here to make an impact. He didn't waste any time making a name for himself. Just weeks after his debut, on January 7, 1971, he took on the crafty and experienced wrestler, classy Freddie Blassie. Blassie was a tough opponent, but Morales was determined to prove he belonged at the top. When the match was over, Morales had his hand raised in victory and became the WWF United States Champion. This was a huge moment in his career, but it was just the beginning of something even bigger. Just 1 month later, on February 8, 1971, Morales found himself in Madison Square Garden, standing across the ring from Ivan Koloff. This was no ordinary match. It was for the WWF World Heavyweight Championship. The energy in the arena was electric. Koloff had recently shocked the world by defeating Bruno Sammartino for the title, and now Morales had the chance to pull off an even bigger upset. When the final bell rang, the crowd erupted in cheers. Morales had done it. He was the new world champion. This victory was historic. Morales didn't just win a championship, he became the first Latino wrestler to hold a major world heavyweight title in the United States. Fans celebrated his win as a triumph not just for him, but for representation in professional wrestling. Once Morales had the championship belt around his waist, his popularity skyrocketed. Fans, especially those from the Hispanic community in New York, embraced him like one of their own. Whenever he defended his title, arenas were packed with people cheering his name. Morales carried himself with pride and honor, and his connection with the audience was something truly special. One of the most unforgettable moments of his career came in September 1972. Morales was set to face Bruno Sammartino, his friend and a former champion, in a highly anticipated showdown at Shea Stadium. More than 22,000 fans filled the stadium, eager to witness two of the biggest wrestling stars of their time battle it out. The match was intense, lasting an incredible 75 minutes. In the end, neither man won. The match had to be stopped because of the state athletic curfew at 11 p.m. Even though there wasn't a clear winner, the match became legendary, talked about for years by fans who had the privilege of witnessing it live. Morales held the world title for an astonishing 1,027 days, nearly 3 years. That's one of the longest championship reigns in WWE history. But like all great things, his reign eventually came to an end. On December 1st, 1973, he lost the title to Stan the Man Stasiak. The loss was a tough one, as Stasiak used his infamous heart punch to secure the win. Even though Morales was no longer champion, he remained a top star in the WWF for another year before deciding to leave the promotion in 1975. While many fans remember Morales for his world championship run, his career was filled with many other incredible achievements. He won titles in different wrestling promotions and proved that he was a force to be reckoned with wherever he went. In 1965, he won the WWA World Heavyweight Championship by defeating the Destroyer. He later regained it that same year, further proving his dominance. He was also a four-time WWA World Tag Team Champion, teaming up with partners like Luis Hernandez to dominate the tag team division. Back in the WWF, he also won the United States Heavyweight Championship, the title that set the stage for his World Championship success. And then, years later, he continued to add to his impressive list of accomplishments. In 1980, Morales teamed up with Bob Backlund to win the WWF World Tag Team Championship. Their victory over the Wild Samoans was a huge moment, but their reign didn't last long. Since Backlund was already the WWF champion, they had to vacate the tag titles shortly after winning them. Perhaps one of Morales' most notable achievements was his success in the Intercontinental Championship division. He first won the Intercontinental title on December 8, 1980, by defeating Ken Patera. But that was just the beginning. He had a fierce rivalry with Don Muraco, and the two battled back and forth over the championship. Morales became the first man to hold the Intercontinental title twice, and between his two reigns, he held the championship for a total of 619 days, a record that stood for decades. His final Intercontinental title reign ended in January 1983, when Muraco defeated him once again. By the early 1980s, Morales had achieved something that no other wrestler in WWF history had done before. He became the first Triple Crown champion, meaning he had held the World Heavyweight, Intercontinental, and Tag Team Championships. This incredible milestone proved that he was one of the greatest champions of all time. For fans who want to relive Morales' legendary career, watching his matches against Don Muraco in Madison Square Garden is a must. Their battles for the Intercontinental Championship were some of the most intense and unforgettable moments in wrestling history. Pedro Morales' impact on wrestling goes far beyond the championships he won. He paved the way for future Latino wrestlers and proved that determination, skill, and heart could take you to the top. Fans still remember his incredible matches, his deep connection with the audience, and the way he carried himself as a true champion. Pedro Morales wasn't just a wrestler, he was an icon, a trailblazer, and a champion in every sense of the word. His story continues to inspire generations of wrestling fans, and his legacy will never be forgotten. Now let's come to a juicier side of his career, his biggest feuds. One of the biggest feuds of Morales' career was against classy Freddie Blassie. Their rivalry started in the 1960s and became even more intense in the early 1970s, when Morales became the WWF champion. Blassie was the kind of villain that fans loved to hate. He was loud, arrogant, and had no problem breaking the rules to get what he wanted. He was also known for making his opponents bleed, and he seemed to enjoy it. When he set his sights on Morales, fans knew it was going to be a war. Their matches were brutal and exciting, and the fans loved every second of it. One of their most important battles took place in January 1971, when Morales defeated Blassie in Los Angeles to win the WWF United States Championship. Later that year, they faced off again at Madison Square Garden, this time with Morales defending the WWF World Championship. In that match, Blassie ended up bleeding so badly that the referee had to stop the fight, giving Morales the victory. The feud reached its peak in December with a special match called a Roman Gladiator match. This was a no-holds-barred fight where anything was allowed, and it was the perfect way to settle their feud. Morales came out on top once again, proving he was the true champion. What made this rivalry so unforgettable was how intense their matches were. Blassie was one of the most brutal wrestlers of his time, and Morales had to fight just as aggressively to keep up. Their matches were full of punches, eye gouges, and lots of blood. Every time Morales landed a punch, the crowd erupted in cheers. His Puerto Rican fans in New York especially loved seeing him take down Blassie, a man who constantly insulted them. This feud showed that Morales was not just a great wrestler, he was a true warrior in the ring. Another legendary feud was against Ivan Koloff, the man who shocked the wrestling world by ending Bruno Sammartino's historic title reign. In January 1971, Koloff defeated Sammartino for the WWF Championship, and the fans were heartbroken. Just a few weeks later, Morales stepped up as his challenger, becoming the new hero that the fans could rally behind. Their biggest match happened on February 8, 1971, at Madison Square Garden. Morales fought with everything he had, taking Koloff's best moves and still coming back for more. Koloff tried to finish him with his dangerous top rope knee drop, the same move that had defeated Sammartino. But Morales saw it coming and moved out of the way just in time. He then surprised Koloff with a sunset flip and pinned him to win the match, becoming the new champion. The crowd went absolutely wild. After the sadness of Sammartino's loss, this was the moment they had been waiting for. The feud continued with rematches, and Koloff did everything he could to get the title back. He used his brute strength, locking Morales in painful bear hugs and slamming him to the mat. But Morales kept fighting. The fans cheered every time Morales landed a punch or countered one of Koloff's attacks. In the end, Koloff never managed to take the title back, and Morales firmly established himself as the top champion. The most unforgettable moment of this rivalry was definitely Morales' championship win. The reaction from the fans was so emotional that some even cried tears of joy. This wasn't just about wrestling, it was about pride. Morales was the first Latino World Heavyweight Champion, and his victory over Koloff, a villain representing Cold War-era Russia, felt like a major triumph. This feud set the stage for Morales' incredible 1,027-day reign as champion and proved that he was a true superstar. While most of Morales' rivalries were against villains, one of his most interesting feuds was with another fan favorite, Bruno Sammartino. By 1972, Morales was the reigning champion, and Sammartino was the legendary former champion. Fans always debated who was the better hero, so when the two finally faced off, it was a dream match. The most famous match between Morales and Sammartino took place on September 30th, 1972, at Shea Stadium. It was called the Match of the Century and lasted an incredible 1 hour and 15 minutes. Both men gave it their all, with Bruno using his power moves and Morales fighting back with his fiery offense. The match ended in a time-limit draw because of New York's midnight curfew. Neither man could defeat the other, and when the final bell rang, they embraced in the ring, showing respect for each other. This match was unforgettable for many reasons. It was one of the longest and most intense matches in wrestling history, and the crowd of over 22,000 was completely invested. Fans were split. Some cheered for Bruno, while others chanted for Morales. When the match ended without a clear winner, there were mixed emotions. Some fans were frustrated, but the match was remembered as a classic. It showed that two heroes could put on a legendary battle without needing a villain. Before he became a major star in WWF, Morales had another intense rivalry with the Destroyer, a masked wrestler known for his technical skills and sneaky tactics. This feud happened in the Los Angeles territory, WWA, in the mid-1960s when Morales was still making a name for himself. The highlight of this feud came on March 12, 1965, when Morales defeated the Destroyer in a 2-out-of-3 falls match to win the WWA World Heavyweight Championship. It was a grueling battle, with the Destroyer taking the first fall and Morales fighting back to win the next two. This victory was a huge moment in Morales' career, proving that he could compete at the highest level. One of the most exciting moments in their matches was when Morales countered the Destroyer's famous figure 4 leg lock, reversing the move and forcing the Destroyer to scramble to the ropes. Another memorable moment happened when Morales partially unmasked the Destroyer during a match, giving fans a rare glimpse of his face. Pedro Morales had many incredible rivalries throughout his career, but these stand out as some of the most important. But the feuds don't end just yet. One of the most thrilling feuds Morales was part of involved the Wild Samoans, Afa and Sika. Back in 1980, Morales had already made a name for himself as a singles competitor, but then something special happened. He was paired with WWF champion Bob Backlund to take on these two wild and intimidating opponents. The Wild Samoans were brutal in the ring, unpredictable, and ruthless. They had been dominating the tag team division for a while, and there wasn't a team left that could stop them. That's when Morales and Backlund stepped in. The rivalry built up to an enormous match at Shea Stadium on August 9, 1980. Thousands of fans filled the stadium to see if Morales and Backlund could take down the monstrous Samoans in a best 2-out-of-3 falls match. The energy in the stadium was electric, and from the moment the match started, it was non-stop action. Morales used his quickness and experience to counter the Samoan strength, while Backlund added his technical skills to the mix. The two worked as a team and won both falls, shocking everyone by taking the WWF Tag Team Championships. The crowd erupted in cheers, celebrating one of the most memorable victories of Morales' career. It was even more special because by winning, Morales became the first wrestler ever to achieve the WWF Triple Crown, winning the World Intercontinental and Tag Team titles. Even though their time as champions was short-lived due to the rules at the time, the rivalry left a lasting impact. The battles leading up to the big match were intense, filled with wild brawls and heated moments. One of the most unforgettable moments happened on television when the Wild Samoans double headbutted Morales, leaving him dazed on the mat. That was when Backlund ran in to help, solidifying their partnership and leading to their eventual victory at Shea Stadium. Another exciting and heated rivalry was with the magnificent Don Muraco. If there was ever a wrestler who loved to taunt and cheat his way to the top, it was Muraco. He was arrogant, ruthless, and had no problem using dirty tactics to win. His feud with Morales centered around the Intercontinental Championship, and it was one of the most intense battles of the early 1980s. It all started in 1981 when Muraco set his sights on Morales' title. The two had many battles, but on June 20th, 1981, in Philadelphia, Muraco finally managed to steal the Intercontinental Championship from Morales. Fans were furious because Muraco had cheated. Many believed he used a hidden object inside his elbow pad to knock Morales out. That loss fueled Morales' determination, and for months he fought to win his title back. Then on November 23, 1981, the two faced off in Madison Square Garden. It was a high-stakes match, and the crowd was behind Morales the entire time. The match was brutal, but Morales refused to stay down. In the end, he pulled off a dramatic comeback and pinned Muraco, reclaiming his title and sending the fans into a frenzy. The moment Morales held up the belt, the arena exploded with cheers. It was one of the loudest reactions of the year. But Muraco wasn't done. In January 1983, he returned with a new manager, Captain Lou Albano, and once again took the title from Morales in another controversial match. This time, Muraco used Albano's cane to take down Morales while the referee wasn't looking. It was another heartbreaking loss. But Morales didn't give up. They continued to battle, leading to some of the most violent and memorable matches in Morales' career. They fought in steel cage matches, street fights, and grudge matches that left the fans on the edge of their seats. Morales even got so frustrated at one point that he choked Morocco with his own belt during a street fight. Their rivalry wasn't just about wrestling, it was deeply personal. Morocco would insult Morales and his Puerto Rican heritage, making the matches even more intense. Fans loved seeing Morales fight back, proving that he would never be intimidated. Then there was Morales' feud with Ken Patera, a powerful former Olympic weightlifter who called himself the strongest man in the world. Patera was the reigning Intercontinental Champion in 1980 and was known for his brutal strength. He had a devastating full Nelson hold that he used to make opponents submit, and he was a villain that fans loved to hate. But Morales wasn't afraid of him. Their feud led to a big showdown on December 8, 1980, at Madison Square Garden. Morales had fought his way to the top once again, and this was his chance to take the Intercontinental Championship from Patera. The match was physical and exhausting. Patera threw Morales around the ring, showing off his incredible strength, but Morales refused to give up. At one point, Patera had Morales locked in the full Nelson, swinging him around like a rag doll. The fans were on the edge of their seats, wondering if Morales would escape. Then, in a moment of pure resilience, Morales managed to counter one of Patera's moves and pin him for the victory. The crowd erupted in celebration as Morales was once again the champion. That victory was a big deal for many reasons. Not only did it make Morales the first Triple Crown winner in WWF history, but it was also a moment of pure triumph for his fans. Seeing Morales drape himself in the Puerto Rican flag after his win was an unforgettable sight. The rivalry didn't end there, though. Patera was furious and continued to go after Morales, leading to even more intense battles, including a Texas death match where Morales once again proved he was the better man. Here's another one.
Introducing to my left, the challenger from South Carolina, weighing 305 pounds, Sergeant Slaughter. His opponent from Culebra, Puerto Rico, weighing 239 pounds, the Intercontinental Heavyweight Champion, Pedro Morales.
By 1981, Morales was the Intercontinental Champion, and Slaughter wanted the title. He insulted Morales, calling him weak and in need of discipline. But Morales wasn't one to back down. When Slaughter challenged anyone brave enough to face him, Morales stepped up, and the battle was on. They had very different styles in the ring. Slaughter was all about power and intimidation, while Morales relied on experience and heart. The fans saw Morales as their champion, especially the Latino community, while Slaughter came off as an overbearing authority figure. Slaughter's manager, the Grand Wizard, made things even more personal by constantly insulting Morales, sometimes even in an ethnic way, which made the rivalry even more heated. Their most famous match happened on February 16, 1981, at Madison Square Garden. The crowd was electric as the two clashed for the Intercontinental Championship. Slaughter had the upper hand for most of the match, even locking Morales in his dreaded Cobra Clutch. But Morales refused to give up. He broke free and started fighting back, sending the crowd into a frenzy. Frustrated, Slaughter snapped and hit Morales with his steel helmet right in front of the referee, getting himself disqualified. Morales kept his title, but the war was far from over. For months, they battled all over the country. Slaughter often got himself disqualified or counted out, rather than take a fair loss. In one match, when Morales started to gain momentum, Slaughter simply walked out, taking a count-out loss instead of facing defeat. But Morales still managed to get clean wins in some non-title matches, including one in Puerto Rico, where he pinned Slaughter with a sunset flip. Their feud reached its peak in a brutal boot camp-style match, where there were no disqualifications. This time, Morales fought dirty too. He used Slaughter's own steel helmet against him and won the match, giving Slaughter a taste of his own medicine. After that, both men moved on to other rivalries, but their battles had made a lasting impact. There were plenty of unforgettable moments between these two. In one match, Slaughter locked Morales in the Cobra Clutch and refused to let go, even after Morales reached the ropes. Officials and other wrestlers had to pry Slaughter off, but Morales had already passed out. Slaughter then stood over him, giving a mocking salute, which made the crowd furious. In another shocking moment, Slaughter threw powder or sand into Morales' eyes during a confrontation, temporarily blinding him. But even then, Morales swung wildly, refusing to go down without a fight. The fans were behind Morales every step of the way. One of the most exciting moments happened when he countered the Cobra Clutch by pushing off the turnbuckles, nearly pinning Slaughter. The crowd erupted. Slaughter was also known for his dramatic reactions. Once Morales hit him with a flying forearm so hard that Slaughter flipped over the top rope and crashed to the floor. Fans loved seeing the bully get knocked around. One of the most infamous moments wasn't even during a match. After losing, an enraged Slaughter grabbed a Puerto Rican flag from a fan at ringside and tore it apart. This nearly caused a riot, with furious fans trying to jump the barricade. Morales recovered and chased Slaughter off, making sure the fan was okay. It wasn't a widely televised moment, but those who saw it never forgot it. The crowd was completely invested in this feud. They despised Slaughter and adored Morales. Every punch Morales landed got a huge reaction, and every time Slaughter locked in the Cobra Clutch, fans screamed for Morales to fight back. Even though Slaughter draped himself in patriotism, many saw him as a villain, especially the large Latino community in New York. Morales, with his Puerto Rican heritage and underdog spirit, became a symbol of resilience. He never submitted to the Cobra Clutch, which only made the fans love him more. Behind the scenes, this rivalry was important for both wrestlers. Slaughter's battles with Morales cemented him as one of wrestling's top villains, while Morales continued proving he was a legendary champion. Even though this rivalry is sometimes overshadowed by Slaughter's later feud with Pat Patterson, it played a huge role in shaping both men's careers. Pedro Morales wasn't just a wrestler, he was a hero to many. From the 1960s through the 1980s, he stood for something bigger than wrestling. Just as Bruno Sammartino was embraced by Italian-American fans, Morales was loved by Puerto Rican and Hispanic fans. His feuds, especially with Slaughter, weren't just about championship belts. They were about representation and pride. Promoters saw Morales' impact. When he won the WWF Championship, attendance at Madison Square Garden skyrocketed, with Puerto Rican fans waving flags and chanting his name. His battles against wrestlers like Ivan Koloff and superstar Billy Graham felt like more than just fights. They were cultural battles, with Morales as the people's champion. He even gave interviews in Spanish, which was rare at the time, making him even more beloved by his fans. His influence went beyond just filling seats. The way fans connected with him showed wrestling promoters that Latino representation mattered. Future stars like Tito Santana and Eddie Guerrero had Morales to thank for proving that a Latino hero could sell out arenas and headline major events. His fights, his wins, and even his losses meant something to the people who saw him as more than just a wrestler. Through all of these rivalries, Morales showed fans what it meant to fight with heart. He never backed down, even when the odds were against him. Whether it was battling a dominant tag team, standing up to a cheating villain, or taking on a powerhouse, he gave it everything he had. His matches weren't just about winning titles, they were about proving that determination and resilience could overcome anything. That's why fans loved him, and that's why his rivalries are still remembered as some of the greatest in wrestling history. Pedro Morales made a huge impact on professional wrestling. He was the first Latin American to win a world heavyweight title in a major promotion, breaking barriers for Latino wrestlers in the United States. At a time when wrestling fans were often divided by ethnicity, Morales had wide appeal. He wasn't just a hero to Puerto Rican and Latino fans. He won the hearts of a diverse audience. In New York City, home to a large Puerto Rican community, he became a legend. His championship matches at Madison Square Garden were major events, often selling out due to his popularity. Morales proved that a Spanish-speaking champion could lead a wrestling company and draw massive crowds. This opened doors for future Latino stars, proving they could reach the top of the industry. He became a symbol of pride for many fans and was one of the first true international superstars in wrestling. His success showed that professional wrestling could appeal to people of all backgrounds, making the sport more inclusive and welcoming to a broader audience. Throughout his career, Morales achieved many incredible milestones. He held the WWF, now WWE, World Heavyweight Championship for nearly 3 years, from 1971 to 1973, making it one of the longest reigns in WWE history. Long before the term Grand Slam champion was used, Morales became the first wrestler to win every major title in WWE at the time, earning what is now called the Triple Crown. He was also one of the most dominant Intercontinental champions ever, holding the title for a total of 619 days. That record lasted for over 2 decades. He was known for his fighting spirit, never giving up, and always putting on an exciting show for the fans. His energy, passion, and determination made him one of the most beloved champions of his era. In 1995, Morales was inducted into the WWF Hall of Fame, becoming one of the first legends to receive this honor. Later, he was also inducted into the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame in 2015 and the Wrestling Observer Newsletter Hall of Fame in 2017. His influence went beyond his own career. Many Latino wrestlers, such as Tito Santana and Eddie Guerrero, have spoken about how much Morales inspired them. He showed that a Latino wrestler could be the face of a major wrestling promotion and be loved by fans across the country. His popularity in the 1970s helped build a strong Latino wrestling fan base, especially in the Northeast, and his impact is still felt today. Even after his retirement, Morales remained a significant figure in the wrestling world. He continued wrestling until the late 1980s. After losing the Intercontinental title in 1983, he still competed as a veteran wrestler, often appearing in special matches and events. One of his memorable appearances was in the famous WWF vs. NFL Battle Royal at WrestleMania 2 in 1986. His last match took place in November 1987, marking the end of a career that spanned nearly 3 decades. Even though he retired from active competition, Morales stayed involved in wrestling in different ways. He worked as a goodwill ambassador for WWE, making occasional appearances and signing autographs for fans. He also became a Spanish-language commentator for both WWE and WCW in the 1990s. His voice became familiar to Spanish-speaking wrestling fans, and he provided insightful commentary for major events. But as time went on, Morales distanced himself from the wrestling business. He felt that modern wrestling had become too flashy and over the top, preferring the more traditional and realistic style of his era. Because of this, he stayed out of the spotlight in his later years. Sadly, Morales faced serious health challenges later in life. In the 2010s, he was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, which affected his mobility and made it difficult for him to appear in public. He also battled other health issues, including cancer and heart problems. On February 12, 2019, Pedro Morales passed away at the age of 76. His death was a sad moment for the wrestling world, but his legacy continues to live on. WWE and other wrestling organizations paid tribute to him, celebrating his accomplishments and the impact he had on the sport. Fans and fellow wrestlers remembered him as a true champion, a pioneer, and an inspiration to generations of wrestling lovers. Many people who grew up watching him considered him their childhood hero. Even today, his influence can still be felt in the wrestling industry. For those who want to learn more about Pedro Morales, WWE has produced a short documentary on his career, which is available on the WWE Network. Wrestling journalist Bill Apter also conducted a retrospective interview called "The Night Pedro Morales Won the WWF Title," which gives a closer look at his championship victory. Pedro Morales was more than just a great wrestler, he was a trailblazer. Coming from humble beginnings in Puerto Rico, he carved out a legendary career through sheer determination, skill, and heart. He didn't just compete, he inspired generations of wrestlers and fans alike. As the first Latino WWE champion, Morales broke barriers at a time when representation in wrestling was limited. His reigns as WWE champion, Intercontinental champion, and tag team champion cemented his status as one of the greatest all-around competitors in history. He proved that hard work and perseverance could take you to the top, no matter where you came from. Despite his incredible achievements, Pedro Morales' name is often overlooked when discussing WWE's greatest champions. While he may not always get the mainstream recognition he deserves, true wrestling fans remember his contributions, He carried himself with dignity inside and outside the ring, earning the respect of peers and audiences worldwide. Morales was more than just a champion. He was a symbol of hope and pride for many, especially in the Latino community. His impact on professional wrestling is undeniable, and his legacy continues to live on in the hearts of those who watched him fight with passion and integrity. Even though he passed away in 2019, his influence remains. Every time a wrestler steps into the ring dreaming of championship gold, they follow in the footsteps of legends like Pedro Morales. His story is one of resilience, hard work, and determination, and it deserves to be remembered. If you enjoyed this look back at Pedro Morales' career, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more nostalgic WWE documentaries. Let us know in the comments, do you think Pedro Morales should be recognized more by WWE? Who else should we cover next? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.